Imagine the lights go out, not for an hour, not for a day, forever. The power grid collapses under a sophisticated cyber-attic and backup systems fail across 3 continents. Hospitals go dark. Water treatment plants shut down. The financial system just evaporates. Within 72 hours, grocery stores are empty. Within a week, cities become war zones. But here's what nobody tells you. While you're fighting over the last cans of beans, there's an entire class of people who will never experience a single moment of that chaos. They are already gone. Billionaires aren't prepping. They've moved way beyond prepping. They're building something far more permanent, far more exclusive, and far more terrifying than a bunker stocked with freeze-dried food. They are constructing a breakaway civilization, a parallel society engineered to outlive the collapse of everything you know, and you are not invited. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is engineering, economics, and cold mathematical certainty. The ultra-wealthy have access to resources, technology, and information that let them architect entire self-sustaining ecosystems while the rest of us scramble. They're not buying gold, they're buying land in New Zealand. They're not stockpiling ammunition, they're building private airports. They aren't worried about the collapse, they are banking on it. Let me give you the science behind why their approach works and why yours probably won't. Survival in a true societal collapse isn't about having the most guns or the biggest food cache. It's about energy independence, water security, and social insulation. The average prepper focuses on individual resilience, storing food, learning to hunt, stockpiling medicine. But this approach fails because it assumes a temporary disruption. It assumes society will rebuild. The billionaire approach assumes society will not rebuild, at least not in a form that includes most of us. They are engineering for permanence. Take energy. Your solar panel setup might keep your phone charged. Their solar farms, power vertical farms, water purification systems, and climate-controlled living environments. Your generator has maybe 2 weeks of fuel. Their geothermal plants can run indefinitely. The physics are simple. Energy is the foundation of modern survival. Without it, you can't purify water at scale, grow food year-round, or maintain medical equipment. The ultra-wealthy aren't just securing energy, they're building redundant, multi-source systems that would take a coordinated global effort to disable. Water is even more critical. You can live for weeks without food. You die in days without water. The average prepper stores bottled water or has a filtration system good for a few thousand gallons. Billionaire compounds are built on aquifers, with industrial-scale desalination plants if they're near a coastline, and atmospheric water generators as backups. These aren't consumer products. These are military-grade systems, capable of producing thousands of gallons per day. They've created closed-loop water systems where every drop is recaptured, purified, and reused. You're counting on a nearby stream not getting contaminated. They have eliminated dependence on external water sources entirely. Food production is where the divide becomes almost comical. You might have a backyard garden and some chickens. They have hydroponic warehouses, growing produce in stacked vertical farms under LED arrays, powered by their energy surplus. This is agricultural science meets industrial efficiency. They're not farming, they're manufacturing food in controlled environments where things like weather, pests, and soil quality are irrelevant. Some compounds even include aquaponics, systems a self-sustaining loop where fish waste fertilizes plants and plants filter water for the fish. You're hoping your tomatoes survive an early frost. They're harvesting crops every 6 weeks, regardless of the season. But here's where it gets darker. The real edge isn't just infrastructure, it's isolation. These compounds are in remote locations, accessible only by private aircraft. New Zealand, Patagonia, remote Pacific Islands, even decommissioned missile silos in the American Midwest converted into luxury bunkers. The geography is intentional. Distance from population centers means distance from desperation. When cities collapse into violence, distance is safety. Your urban apartment or suburban home is surrounded by millions of people who will become increasingly desperate. Their compounds are surrounded by oceans, mountains, or thousands of acres of private land patrolled by security, which brings us to security itself. This isn't some guy with an AR-15 guarding a bunker. These are private military contractors, former special forces operatives, with advanced surveillance systems, drones, and AI-driven threat detection. Some compounds are rumored to have biometric access controls and panic rooms within panic rooms. This security isn't designed to repel a random looter. It's designed to repel coordinated attacks from disparate groups. The assumption is that society will fracture violently, and only lethal, professional-grade defense will be enough. Now, let me explain the psychological edge, because this is what separates true survival from temporary endurance. The billionaire mindset isn't reactionary, it's preemptive. They aren't waiting for the collapse to act. They have already acted. Their families are trained. Their staff is vetted and loyal, often with their own families housed on site to ensure commitment. There is no panic because the transition was made years in advance. When the crisis hits, they board a jet and disappear. You'll be stuck in traffic trying to evacuate a city with 4 million other people who had the same idea at the same time. This preemptive action is rooted in game theory. In any disaster, the first to act have the greatest advantage. Resources are finite. Space is finite. Once panic begins, options just collapse. The wealthy understand that survival isn't about reacting to disaster. It's about being positioned before disaster occurs so that reaction is unnecessary. They're even buying citizenship in countries with favorable collapse profiles, stable governments, low population density, and abundant natural resources. This isn't patriotism. It's portfolio diversification applied to human survival. There's also a social dimension that most people miss. These compounds are not isolated bunkers for single families. They are micro-communities, engineers, doctors, educators, security personnel, agricultural experts, all carefully selected and pre-positioned. The model is almost feudal. The billionaire is the lord. The staff are vassals who receive protection and resources in exchange for skills and loyalty. This is intentional social architecture. Survival at scale requires diverse skill sets. No single person, no matter how wealthy, can do it all. They've built interdependent communities where every role is filled by a specialist. Meanwhile, the rest of society is being conditioned for dependence. Urban living, just-in-time supply chains, digital currency, the cloud, it all creates fragility. You probably don't know where your water comes from. You couldn't grow a potato if your life depended on it, and someday it might. Your entire existence is based on systems functioning. The billionaires have exited those systems. They've created parallel systems that they control. Let me be specific about what this means when the collapse happens. You will experience it as a sudden shock. Grocery stores empty, gas stations run dry, hospitals overflow, water stops flowing from the taps, the internet goes down and doesn't come back, financial accounts become inaccessible. The rule of law dissolves as police and military abandon their posts to protect their own families. Within weeks, cities become uninhabitable. Starvation, disease, and violence become the primary causes of death. This isn't fiction. This is what happens when complex systems fail simultaneously. History is full of examples. From the Bronze Age collapse to the fall of Rome, it happens faster than anyone expects, and the unprepared die in staggering numbers. The billionaires will experience it as a planned relocation. A phone call, a car, to the airport. A private jet to a compound where nothing has changed. The lights are on, the water is clean, food is plentiful, security is absolute. They will watch the world burn on satellite feeds while eating fresh vegetables grown in their hydroponic farms. There will be no fear because there is no uncertainty. Everything was planned. Everything was built. Everything functions. You might think this is unfair, but fair has nothing to do with it. This is physics, economics, and human nature. Those with resources use them to ensure survival. Those without resources become statistics. The emotional reaction to this reality is understandable, but it's irrelevant. Here is the brutal truth most people cannot accept. You cannot replicate what they have done. You do not have the capital. You do not have the access. You do not have the time. A fully self-sufficient compound costs tens of millions of dollars minimum. The land alone, in a remote secure location, costs more than most people will earn in a lifetime. The infrastructure, energy, water, food production, security requires expertise and construction timelines measured in years. If you are reading this and collapse is a realistic concern, you are already too late to build what they have built. But that does not mean you are helpless. It means you need a different strategy, one rooted in urban survival science, not rural fantasy. Most prepper advice assumes you can bug out to the woods. This is a myth. The woods will be full of people who have the same idea, most of whom will die of exposure, starvation, or violence within weeks. The real survival happens in understanding urban systems and exploiting them during the transition period between stability and total collapse. Water is your first priority, not food. The human body can survive 3 weeks without food, but only 3 days without water. In an urban collapse, water infrastructure fails quickly. Treatment plants require electricity and chemicals. Without them, tap water becomes contaminated within days. You need to understand where water is stored in your city. Most cities have elevated water towers that hold millions of gallons. These continue to provide pressure even after pumps fail, for a limited time. Locate them. Know how to access them. Bring containers and a way to purify what you take. Boiling works but requires fuel. Chemical purification tablets are compact and effective. UV purification pens are ideal but require batteries. Redundancy is key. Next, understand that food is not where you think it is. Grocery stores are the worst place to be during initial panic. They are stripped within hours and become focal points for violence. The real food sources are commercial kitchens, school cafeterias, hospital storage areas, and warehouse districts. These are overlooked in the initial chaos because most people do not think like scavengers. You need to think like a scavenger. Map these locations now. Understand access points. Know which buildings have loading docks. which have weak entry points. This is not about looting for sport. This is about acquiring resources necessary for survival when legal structures have collapsed. Shelter is more complex than it seems. Your home might be compromised quickly, no power, no water, potentially unsafe depending on location. You need a backup location, ideally somewhere defensible, with access to resources and not obvious. Think creatively. Subway tunnels in some cities have maintenance rooms with tools and sometimes emergency supplies. Parking garages have structural integrity and elevation advantages. Office buildings emptied during collapse have bathrooms with water in pipes and sometimes backup generators. The key is anonymity. Do not go where everyone else goes. Security in an urban environment is about invisibility, not firepower. You cannot outgun a desperate mob. You avoid the mob entirely. This means understanding human behavior during collapse. Most people move in predictable patterns toward perceived safety like police stations or hospitals, toward resources like stores, or toward escape routes like highways. You move perpendicular to these flows. You travel at times when others do not, very early morning. During weather events, you look like you belong, not like you are scavenging. Clothing matters. Dirty, worn clothing suggests you have nothing worth taking. Clean, official-looking clothing suggests authority people instinctively avoid confronting. Let me address the psychological component directly, because this is where most people fail even if they have resources and knowledge. Collapse is cognitively overwhelming. Your brain is not designed to process the end of normalcy. Every cue you have relied on for stability, laws, social norms, infrastructure vanishes. This creates acute psychological stress that manifests as paralysis, panic, or denial. You must train your mind before crisis, not during. Visualization is a proven technique. Military and emergency personnel use it constantly. You mentally rehearse scenarios in detail. Power goes out and does not return. Water stops flowing. You hear gunshots nearby. You see fire in the distance. What do you do? Step by step. Where do you go? What do you take? Who do you trust? The more vividly you imagine these scenarios and your responses, the more automatic your actual responses become under stress. Your brain creates neural pathways through rehearsal. When real crisis hits, you follow those pathways instead of freezing. Decision-making under stress requires frameworks, not improvisation. Create decision trees now. If X happens, I do Y. If that fails, I do Z. Simple. Binary choices are easier to execute under pressure than complex analysis. Example, if water stops, I go to location A. If location A is compromised, I go to location B. No deliberation needed. You have already decided. Fear management is physiological, not just mental. Fear triggers adrenaline, which impairs fine motor skills and rational thinking. You need techniques to regulate your nervous system. Controlled breathing for seconds in. Hold for seconds. 4 seconds out activates the parasympathetic nervous system and reduces panic response. Practice this now so it becomes automatic. In a crisis, 30 seconds of controlled breathing can mean the difference between a fatal mistake and a sound decision. Trust is your most dangerous vulnerability. In collapse scenarios, desperation makes people unpredictable. Someone you considered a friend might betray you for resources. This is not cynicism. This is human behavior under extreme stress. The psychological research is clear. Moral frameworks collapse when survival is threatened. You need to assess trust dynamically, not historically. Who has resources? Who has skills? Who has dependents that create competing loyalties? The person most trustworthy in normal times might be the most dangerous in collapse because they will do anything to protect their children. Group dynamics shift rapidly. Small groups of 3 to 5 with clear roles and mutual interdependence are stable. Larger groups fragment into factions. Solo survival is nearly impossible beyond short term. You need people, but the wrong people are worse than being alone. Vet your group now. Have difficult conversations about values, capabilities, and acceptable actions under crisis. If you cannot have those conversations in calm times, you will not survive the disagreements during chaos. Now, the timing of action. This is critical. There is a window between when collapse becomes inevitable and when chaos becomes total. This window is hours to days, not weeks. The moment you recognize systemic failure, multiple infrastructure failures, government communication breakdown, visible social disorder, you act immediately, not tomorrow, not after you gather more information. Immediately, every hour you wait, options narrow. Roads become impassable, resources become scarcer, violence increases. The people who survive are the ones who moved while others were still processing what was happening. This requires monitoring systems for early warning signs. Financial markets are leading indicators. Sudden, massive drops suggest systemic panic. Government communication is another. Official channels go silent or issue contradictory information. Infrastructure is failing. Social media, while unreliable, shows real-time reports of local breakdowns. You are looking for patterns, not single events. One power outage is not collapse. Simultaneous failures across multiple systems. Here is what you need to understand about the billionaire breakaway civilization. It is not a backup plan. It is the primary plan. They are not preparing for possible collapse. They are assuming inevitable collapse and positioning accordingly. The difference in mindset is everything. Most people hope things will be fine and prepare half-heartedly just in case. The ultra-wealthy assume things will not be fine and have removed themselves from the equation entirely. This creates a bifurcated future. One civilization continues with technology, abundance, security, and stability for a very small number of people. The other civilization descends into a chaotic, resource-scarce, violent struggle for survival for everyone else. There is no middle ground. There is no gradual transition. There is the before and the after looks like two completely separate worlds. You are not going to join their world. The gates are closed. Citizenship in collapse-resistant nations is increasingly difficult to obtain and prohibitively expensive. Access to their compounds is by invitation only, and you do not have the skills or connections they value. This is not pessimism. This is reality. Accepting this reality allows you to focus on what you can control. What you can control is your knowledge, your skills, your physical fitness, your psychological resilience, and your immediate network. You can control your understanding of urban systems and how to exploit them. You can control your preparation timeline and the quality of your preparations. You can control whether you are someone others want in their survival group or someone they see as a liability. The final warning is this: the gap between the prepared and the unprepared is not about stuff. It is about mindset. It is about accepting that the world you know is fragile and can end. It is about making decisions now that seem extreme or paranoid, but that might save your life later. It is about being the person who acts while others freeze. The billionaires are not smarter than you. They are not more deserving. They simply have more resources and fewer illusions. They understand that civilization is a thin veneer over chaos, and that veneer is cracking. They have built lifeboats for themselves. You need to build yours, even if it is smaller, even if it is improvised, even if it only buys you time, because time is all survival ever is. Lasting one more day. Making one more good decision. Avoiding one more fatal mistake. The breakaway civilization is already built. Your question is not whether you can join them. Your question is whether you will be ready when everything else falls apart. Preparation is the only difference between the victim and the survivor. Start now, or become a statistic later. The choice is yours, but the clock is running.